there is a narrative, there is an agenda, there is kind of something that happened back in the 50s, 60s that's changed the course of history. So they started demonizing saturated fat and cholesterol was probably the biggest mistake in history, actually, because it led us down this path of, well, if cholesterol and saturated fat are bad, then what is good? All right, Brian. Well, thanks for carving up some time to cruise on by. And you keep your hair short. Yeah. So I'm going to perform a magic trick today. I'm going to somehow turn this very short haircut, and that would normally take me probably about 20 minutes to do. I'm going to somehow make this last longer than 20 minutes. So let's talk a little bit about your hair. You got curly hair, and I know you keep it short. Is there a reason behind why you keep it so short? It's got funny story. 10 years ago, I was Macklemore for Halloween. Oh God! And I just kind of shaved at the sides, and then I got so many compliments. I just kept it this way forever. Like from that day, I have not changed it. It was a good costume, and I think it's good to just, I don't know. I have a little bit of like pepper, to get the gray coming in, so it's like kind of nicer to keep that short around here. And I don't know. I kept it. That's cool. And then how do you do the top? You just do this all with clippers? Yep. I don't think too much about it. I cut my own hair. So how short do you want to take this? Like, what is it that when you are doing your hair with your own clippers, what number are you using? It's like the 0. So you're just like, well, no. The 1, I guess. Okay. Yeah. And I just did it recently because I broke down. I was trying to save it for you, but I just broke down. So it's only been a few days. So I keep it like just a tiny, tiny bit shorter than this. Okay. But then I kind of just do like a hard cut. Like, see how there's a line? Like I was trying to do like a quick fade, but like I just kind of just do like a hard line usually where it's just all 1 and then all like 3. It's very like military vibe. Yeah. Which is fine. I don't need to be that way. But yeah, it gets curly. Like I can make it long. I used to straighten it. Well, actually, way back in the day, I like kind of straightened it a few times. Really? Yeah. Chemically or like? Yeah, on my own. Oh man. Like I would just put the stuff in my hair, the relaxer, and then it actually looked kind of cool. Like I had like this like kind of little wave going. I did relaxers briefly, and it just made my hair feel like straw. And I was like, okay, probably not good. Yeah, like I'm not doing it. Especially there's a movie that Chris Rock did called Good Hair, and he's talking about all the things that the Black community does with their hair, from chemical relaxing to not chemical relaxing, all that. And they were doing a breakdown of what it does to the hair, but also what it will do to like aluminum cans. It was gnarly. And then after that, my roommate, who was also my coworker, another hairdresser, we looked at each other and we're like, never. I'm not doing that ever again. Yeah. So we're going to keep it short. Yeah. And then we'll play around with this on the top, right? Yeah. And do you care how you have like a crazy little calic back here? Have you ever thought about like growing this part out here so that way it has like a little bit, or you just? Oh, I just can't even see it. I'm seriously like, I'm such a dude. I just don't even care. I just cut it myself, and I kind of just like randomly try to buzz the back and make a straight line. And I just have no plan. No plan. Yeah. So please help me. Okay. I'll try to figure it out. Just put cape on. All right. So Brian, you do a lot of things. They are all in the sphere of health. You have an amazing Instagram page, which I discovered through many people. That it turns out that a lot of people I'm friends with in real life also follow you as well. And it's the food lies. It's the food.lies? Food.lies, yeah. I love it because every day there's like a new thing about health or food. It's kind of like, when I say it's all over the place, it's just pointing out, I think, as somebody who's just watching. So I don't know if this is your goal or not. Is it? I feel that it is showing the hypocrisy sometimes and the world that makes no sense. Like I'll call it clown world, right? Mm-hmm. Where there, I think one post like, was like about red meat, like 12% of men are all eating all the beef in the world. And then like the next thing was like 88% of people are like dying with some metabolically unhealthy. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. I just love that because I feel that like since 2020, no one believes anything they read anymore. And I love that you're just kind of like, sometimes you just put these articles like side by side with not much conjecture from you, basically saying like, does this make sense to you? Like you're just searching. Am I wrong on that?
Pointing out hypocrisies, asking questions. Actually, well, so it's been 6.5 years of me doing this.
Okay.
And so at this point, I think my audience kind of knows too. So I like to let them do the conjecture and the commenting, which is fun because they always get it. You know, they fun to read the comments.
You know, I don't talk about politics, but I do feel that there's now, if you live a particular like food or health lifestyle, you're automatically lumped into a particular political affiliation. I know people who live a certain lifestyle, but do not align with that political affiliation. So I find it really funny that food has now become, it used to be the great uniter. Now it's like the great divider.
It is. I've posted some of those articles. There's one that it was something about exercise and being a right-wing conspiracy theorist and eating, raw. Everything is a right-wing conspiracy theorist now. Raw milk, red meat, and working out. Those three things are now, that means you're like a QAnon, like insane person.
The thing that cracks me up is the raw milk one. Growing up in California, you can go to the health food markets or even Sprouts. So if you have Sprouts in your town, you can't buy raw milk there. But in California, you can go to Sprouts and buy raw milk. Like I always would shop at these health food places, which were historically, if you walk through, it was a bunch of like hippie-looking people, dreadlocks,
like liberal hippie.
Yeah. Like our classic old school hippie liberals.
Yeah.
And that's where I would buy all these things. And so when I read these articles, I'm like, I'm so confused because that's not what I think of. And you lived in California for a while.
Yeah. I think the change happened with COVID in that the liberal thing used to be like not trusting the government and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Then with COVID, it's the message was everyone has to trust the government no matter what. And then people who didn't follow that narrative were then lumped into the right-wing conspiracy crowd.
Okay.
So I think that's why it happened. It's just in the last 4 years. And it's kind of like the liberals changed. I mean, I'm neither. I don't care about any of this stuff. I don't get into the politics stuff, but it's that if you follow the narrative, you were on the liberal side, and if you questioned it, you were on the right-wing side. And that was it.
I just remember back like in 2001 with 9/11, all the people I knew who questioned the narrative, I would say were classically blue-leaning liberal types of personalities, anti-war. And then, as you're saying, like everything's kind of like upside down. Like we're in the Stranger Things timeline.
Yeah,
which gives me more belief that there could be a multiverse.
I'm into it.
The multiverse is a random thing. Especially, I had a client. He's a professor at a really big college, and he was guest on Through the Wormhole, stuff like that. And having him explain to me like quantum mechanics and quantum physics and quantum everything, I've never felt more dumb in my life. Being around somebody who's on that level of shit. So with Food Lies, you have this Instagram account, and you also have Sapien Center, which I think is a really cool idea. And that's where I get my
exactly,
because
it's a raw milk connection right here.
Yeah, exactly. Which I'm so happy about. My boys and I, we go in there and we get our cream, get our milk, and then we make ice cream with it. And then they get their raw milk and honey every day. That's like their daily drink. They love it. And like, there's nothing wrong with it. It's all healthy stuff.
Yeah.
So what was the concept with Sapien Center?
I think every young man wants a clubhouse.
Oh yeah.
Every child probably has this idea of a clubhouse. So that's probably really where it started. But then I was doing all this online stuff, right? I'm on the internet. I'm making a documentary series. I'm doing the podcasts. I have an online business, and I wanted to get them all in person. So that's one thing too, is like have a hub Right? I didn't feel like there was any hub, and I was in LA and I didn't have a community. Yeah. Right. So it's like there was, surely tens of thousands of people that lived in LA that were into this stuff, right? Eating ancestral diets, animal-based diets, eating naturally, like all this type of stuff, but everyone was just spread out. I started visiting Austin 9 years ago, kind of saw what was going on. I'm like, this is the place to be, right? A lot of people, a lot of health conferences, a lot of people just gathering in Austin. And so, yeah, basically once COVID happened, I realized I need to get out of LA and just finally do this, like make something happen, create a little hub for people who want to eat healthy, who don't really kind of buy into the norms.
It's cool because I was trying to explain it to somebody. They're like, what is it? I'm like, I don't know how to succinctly do it. And you'll probably correct me on this. I'm like, go and buy my raw milk. There's a bunch of people in like workout clothes. Most of them dudes are walking around shirtless and they're on a laptop. And then I see them do a kettlebell workout. They do the cold plunge. They're coming out of the sauna. And everyone's having a good time. And then they go back to like their laptop again.
Yeah. We call it the shirts office. The shirts office. Yeah. We're going to make shirts, but then it seemed kind of like counterintuitive to have a shirt for the shirts office.
Yeah. That's true. That would be like, who would wear the shirt?
Yeah. So that's why we stopped. It really is that. I've thought about it a lot too, because I always have to explain what it is.
Yeah.
Because people always ask me. And then I'm like, what's a common thread? And before, people kind of thought it's like, oh, is this just like a meat cult? Because because everyone there just loves red meat. That's kind of just a big part of it. It's like when you wake up to nutrition, you realize that red meat is one of the healthiest things you can eat for humans, right? Raw milk, red meat, these are just pure health foods. And these are the things demonized. So once you start going against the government guidelines on diet and you kind of like wake up to some things, you end up eating a lot of meat. But then that's not at all what the Sapien Center is about. Like we've had a few vegetarian members and pescatarian. There's a guy, pescatarian guy. Then I was like, okay, it's not food. It's just, and it's not necessarily working out. Like, of course, everyone likes to be healthy and work out, but it really is more about, like I said, not buying into the mainstream narratives, right? It's kind of like a place to go. Well, have you heard the concept of a third place or third space?
No.
Back in the day, say, I don't know, 100 years ago, someone coined this term, the third space, but it's like your first space was your home, your second space was your work, and then there was a third space, which used to be like a town hall, town square, maybe a pub, maybe a park, stuff like that, where people would go to socialize and talk about the current day events and stuff like that. And we don't really have those anymore because instead of like a nice town pub, it turned into Dirty Six where people are just getting blacked out.
Yeah.
And like, that's not the same.
No, Simon Sinek was talking about this on another podcast called Diary of a CEO. And he was talking about how we don't have that community anymore that used to be like your bowling team. It used to be your gammon night. It used to be your church. It used to be, all of these other things. He said that it's not the employer's responsibility now to fulfill all of these buckets. Then as an employer, their job is to give you a job and pay you, and to do that in a pleasant way where they're not taking advantage of you. Outside of that, all the philanthropic work that people want a company to do, so that's not their job. If they do that, that's cool, but it's not the responsibility. The responsibility is to make money and employ you. And that all these things we used to get from our community, from all these other aspects. Want to do charity work, go on and do charity work. Your job didn't have to pay for it. So this idea of a third space is very much part of, I think, what we're all been looking for.
Definitely.
Because now we're at home and we're working at home. A lot of us still are. I mean, I'm not. I don't think you are. So you don't have that second space, which is your work, right? If you don't have a second space, then you definitely are in dire need of this third space because your first and second have merged. So it's like 1A, 1B, and then 3.
Yes, you need it. Humans need it. And I'm making a documentary series about food and health and what to eat. I realize it's so much more than that along the way, right? Like humans need social connection. They need purpose. They need community. They need this stuff. there's a whole side story about blue zones.
Yes, bring out experience in the blue zones.
Yeah. Oh, that's a long one because Dan Buettner, wrote this book. He went around the world trying to basically prove his theory, his bias that people who lived to 100 were plant-based. So I mean, it's not true. So I've been to some of these blue zones, and I have a good friend in the nutrition space that's been to, I think, all of them. And there's been so many people to debunk them. They're not plant-based. He just went there and if I wanted to go to a country and say they were peanut butter based, I could probably do that, right? I would just go find some homes that ate a lot of peanut butter and then only talk to them. That's basically what he did.
Yeah.
He just saw what he wanted to see. But really, these cultures used a lot of animal fat. That they would be drinking raw milk. They would be using pig fat. I went to one of the ones in Costa Rica. They don't have much money, right? They're growing their own food. They have chickens, they have a cow, they get milk every day, and they have some pigs, and they kill a pig each month, and they eat the pig, and they save all the fat, and they're cooking in the fat. They're eating the cheese. Everything is kind of animal based. But he goes there and he's like, oh, well, look at their plate. Their plate looks like it is filled with a lot of plant food, but really that's just because they can't afford much else. But when you look by calories, it's actually a lot of animal based food, right? They're not using seed oils, they're using pork fat,
which is one of the cheapest fats to find.
Yes.
And we used to use forever until the American Health Association came along and bought their way into the health food space, which is, again, that's not for me to talk about.
No. Well, I don't, that's for the Food Lies series.
The trailer is amazing because I like how you're putting it all together. Oh, back to your blue zone thing real quick. It's the one thing that they all had in common.
Oh, yeah.
Community.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. Would you finish that thread?
Hang on. I'll finish that thread. Can I just make this as a blend into here just a little bit right into here?
Yeah.
You like that? Like, stop.
Oh, no, you can.
I just want to, because I took this, you said a 1 guard.
Yeah.
And I took it to a 0, which is, so if you want it shorter, I just think it'd be really cool to just kind of like fade that up, just make it a little tighter. And I'll do it here in the neck too.
Sure.
Cool. All right, so let's finish that thread about.
Yeah, finish the blue zone.
Yeah.
So I watched the series on Netflix. My takeaway from the blue zones is they're doing, even Dan Buettner's angle, they're doing 90% of things absolutely correctly, even from his point of view, which is they're moving around, they're all exercising. All these people are walking and climbing hills and walking, carrying groceries. Like, 90-year-old, 100-year-old people, they're out there like, they're not even using cars.
Yeah.
They're carrying stuff upstairs, up hills, they're gardening. So they're moving, they're spending time outdoors, right? They're getting vitamin D, they're outside, they're living with nature. They're living with their family into old age. They have jobs into old age, even if it's not a traditional job. They're doing everything correct. They're sleeping well, right? They're not on devices all the time. It's like, basically everything that everyone talks about these days in the natural health world, they're doing all of them, and they're eating whole foods. If you're eating whole foods, you're winning no matter what. So yeah.
You mean whole foods as in foods that are whole, not the
store.
Not the store. Also from Austin.
Yeah. Not the store. They're doing great. So even if they are, some of them more plant-based, that doesn't even matter to me. I'm not like, oh man, I got to prove to the world that you should be carnivore. I've never been carnivore.
I got introduced when the book came out from a client. I was talking about food and diet, and they said, have you heard of blood type diet? And I thought it was really interesting to read the foods that I liked and my blood type and how it did seem to coincide quite nicely. I always say I feel like I have more energy. I'm like, you can give me a steak or like a chicken, like a roasted chicken. I'll just eat all the meat and all that. And I have more energy than if I ate like a quote, like balanced salad, right? Mm-hmm. And everyone's like, oh, that's weird. You shouldn't. You should be feeling better if you eat the salad. I go, I feel better when I eat the meat. Well, I'm So I'm the carnivore blood type, apparently. Mm-hmm. And then the girl I was dating was a vegetarian. I think she was like A, which I think is the one that they say is supposed to be more plant-based. And I thought it was really, really quite funny that she has been vegetarian her whole life. She is that blood type that supported it. So then I started wondering, I wonder if the blood type is a precursor to people eating off of like where their point of origin might be based around the food that was naturally around them. So then I started thinking like, okay, well, I'm Scandinavian and German. There was a lot of fat in those diets because, well, I know some of the Scandinavians kill whales to this day and eat the blubber and all that, right? And then I started worrying about that, and then I started seeing more people talk about eating with your ancestral heritage diets, and that seems to be like the new thing I've been seeing pop up. Your take on that?
I think there's something to it. No, I love it. There's something to it. I haven't really studied the blood type stuff.
Yeah.
But I know that there's something to it, right? That yes, to your heritage, where you're from, people closer to the equator have more plant-based foods in their diet, and the animals are smaller, and there's not as much fat.
Yeah.
And they rely, and then there's more fruit and more stuff growing, right?
Yeah.
So people towards the equator eat more plant-based, people towards in the north. A lot of Europeans, a lot of giant animals, a lot of fat, less plants.
Yeah.
Definitely. There's something to it. Yeah, because now we're kind of learning more about, well, we don't need to eat some giant salad every day.
The big salad, as Elaine would call it.
Yeah. It's like, I don't think we need that. It was a paradigm that the kind of modern carnivore crowd or animal-based crowd are kind of debunking. And I kind of agree with them on that. This is not really how we ate. This was not even possible for a lot of people for a lot of history.
Yeah.
And there's just a lot of associations that we've made that people who eat the giant salads are healthier. Like, well, yeah, the people who choose to really focus on their health and avoid processed foods are healthier.
Yeah.
Right. So it's just really just a correlation. It's not like causative. It's not like because I ate this like 12 ingredient green salad that I am directly healthy because of it. I mean, of course, there's antioxidants, there's a story there, but that it's not that you have to eat it to be healthy is the point.
There's a lot of people who do carnivore. I'm just going to use that blanket term that are doing a horrible job with it, probably.
Or they're eating sticks of butter. I see it online all the time.
I know. Exactly. I'm like, that's not,
they're chewing on it. It's crazy.
Gross. I tried eating just like I got a little extra butter on my finger once. I'm like, this is,
why would I want that? Yeah.
I
cook my eggs in it. I don't need excess. Like, it's absurd.
Yeah. And then I also know plenty of like people over my, lifespan that are vegetarians that are also not doing it right too. They're eating all of the like, oh, but see, this is a fake chicken thing, or this tastes like sausage. And I've always been like, if I really want something to taste like sausage, I'll just eat sausage. I'm just call me weird.
Call me crazy. Yeah, I just posted today about this egg. They made an egg out of like 35 ingredients. Just have the egg. Just have an egg, guys. Come on.
Yeah, like the fake meat thing, and I'm gonna go into this a little bit. I grew up watching a lot of sci-fi, a lot of like in school horror movies, a lot of X-Files, and reading a lot of UFO alien conspiracy books. So that put me automatically like living on the fringe, if you will. And every time I see the Beyond Meats and the Impossible Burgers and all that, I cannot help but think of the fucking Soylent Green. And I'm like, Soylent Green are people? Sorry to spoil it, with Charlton Heston and all that. But like, it's one of those things where I'm like, it just doesn't seem weird. It seems so weird to want to choose to eat something and with a bunch of chemical in it sounding nice.
There's a big narrative that's been growing for years, and I think it's a purposeful narrative.
Yeah.
That red meat, raw milk, even eggs are the perfect food. Somehow they took the perfect food, so many nutrients that can build a whole chicken, and the government guidelines and all that for decades was avoid them because of cholesterol. Right? These narratives are absurd. It's kind of part of my whole mission is to debunk all these. So, and why?
Aren't our brains made out of cholesterol?
Yes.
And don't we and your hormones and higher cases of dementia happening at earlier and earlier ages? Alzheimer's? Could there be some connection of lack of cholesterol in our diet and our brains
absolutely not
in the way they should be?
People have been scared of cholesterol. There's actually good studies that older people who have higher cholesterol live longer.
Really?
Published big studies. The older people who have higher cholesterol live longer. So yeah, it's all wrong. There's studies that show that red meat is perfectly healthy. People don't even know about them. It goes against the narratives, right?
Yeah.
Your hormones are made of cholesterol. Like cholesterol is a a very necessary, important part of your body. So yeah, there's a whole rabbit hole you can go into there. But back to the narrative part, I just think, and what I've learned from doing this full time for almost 7 years, there is a narrative, there is an agenda, there is kind of something that happened back in the 50s, 60s that's changed the course of history.
Yeah.
That they started demonizing saturated fat and cholesterol. It was probably the biggest mistake in history, actually, because it led us down this path of, well, if cholesterol and saturated fat are bad, then what is good? Well, it's just whole grains, just basically processed foods. Yeah, it's the opposite. So it's like, we can't eat that, then that means we need to base our diet on grains and bread and pasta, all this type of stuff, which is what happened, right? And I think the US guided that, right? We kind of influenced the world. We still do. And what did the US had just millions of acres of basically land to grow these crops.
Yeah.
Right. It was sort of this like kind of monetary decision type thing of, if you look into it, you actually find the guidelines were going to be more realistic with whole foods and meat and dairy and all this stuff. Mm-hmm. But then we realized they couldn't pay for that. That if they made the guidelines that way, we couldn't pay for the food stamps or all, there's so many government programs, the military, even guides for retirement home, all these things, the menus dictated by the guidelines, they wouldn't be able to afford that. So it's like we have all these cheap corn, wheat, and soy. And so all the subsidies went there. It's just a whole system that changed because of the availability. And I think probably industry influence, because there's a lot of money to be made on these processed foods.
I agree that it does seem a little suspicious that there's I always say follow the money. Right? Mm-hmm. For years have said, the longer the expiration date on something, the worse it is for you to eat. Granted, there are certain things you can't eat that have a longer expiration date, like certain fermented things and dried meats and all that. Very, very different system.
Yeah.
But if I'm looking at an apple, and then I'm looking at the apple slices that are sprayed with something so they don't turn yellow, mm-hmm. like my fresh apple does, I'm probably going to go with the one that's going to turn yellow faster because it's probably nutrient dense and it's going to be better for me. Getting to eating like this, so staying away from all the processed foods, I'm going to say it's been easy, but it's not because they're everywhere.
Yeah, it's a very personal decision. And it took me, even while learning about it took me a long time to really implement in my life and not have the desire to eat them anymore. So I don't like to rely on willpower, right? I think that's how people fail. They just will try to force themselves to not eat certain foods or go to fast food.
Yeah.
For me, that's not going to work long term. What I need to do is change my philosophy and change just like who I am.
Yeah.
So that I am not someone who eats processed foods anymore, Then I don't desire them. Before it's like, okay, man, I just played beach volleyball for 3 hours. I'm going to just pull through Chipotle. Not that, I don't know, Chipotle could be okay. You could be like,
they cook with seed oils.
They do.
If they remove the seed oils, that will be a huge game changer.
You could get a decent bowl.
You could.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. They use like wheat bran oil or something. But so it went from me, okay, I'm like, okay, I'm going to go through and get that, to me not even thinking about it. Yeah. Like it's just not on my radar anymore. Like but then also we're talking before, I am not an insane person. Like if I am traveling and I need to eat at Chipotle, I eat at Chipotle, right?
Practical.
Yes. It's like a couple of times, but I'm not crazy about it. And like, if I go to a party and people are serving stuff, I'm not going to be like, oh, what is in this? Have to interview them about it.
Yeah.
Like someone made this, I'm going to eat it.
Yeah. No, I'm with you on that one. I mean, when people ask, are there any dietary restrictions or big into that? And I say, look, my dietary restrictions probably impossible to accommodate.
Yeah.
And like, what do you mean? I just don't do, but I like to keep things as natural as possible. So, please cook it in butter. I was at Applebee's in West Pennsylvania. They were unable to accommodate cooking my steak in butter.
Seems weird.
I know. That was a really horrible steak.
Yeah. So I also am very consistent 98% of the time so that I could be not worried about those times.
I'm with you.
Because I don't think that the body's very resilient. I want to be anti-fragile. I actually have been friends with some of these carnivore doctors that people have heard of for many years, they like didn't really get this concept. I was talking to one of them many years ago. He was like, what's the deal? Like, why are you eating plants? I'm like, well, for one, I'm not scared of plants. I mean, I don't eat a lot. I don't eat like spinach anymore. I don't eat like high oxalate plants. Broccoli is not going to kill you.
An autoimmune issue where, you do need the iodine in your system.
Yes. There's a long story to the anti-nutrients discussion. Yeah, definitely. They block absorption of nutrients. There's so much going on there.
Right now, I'm pretty sure anyone who's ever listened to any of the podcasts right now is probably going like, they're getting to see a whole new side of me. This is a side that I'm really passionate about, pursue, like to know more about this stuff, because I want to be healthy, but I also want to give my boys a better start in being healthier with food. Because we talk about child obesity, right? People can make a claim that there's genetics at play involved with obesity and all that. And my wife is thin and I'm thin and our kids are thin. But I'm not going to just bank on genetics. I do think that we've done so much to remove all the artificial dyes and the added refined sugars, all of these things that we do know that like stimulate the brain negatively across all ages. Like we've made a point to take that out. Now, outside of that, somebody could say that our kids need to have more vegetables or less vegetables or more fruit or less fruit. And at that point, I don't really fucking care. Because if you're going to raise your kid to be vegan, I'm not going to give you shit about it. I just hope that you're just making the best choices within your choice. That's the thing about when you become a parent, Brian, at some point, if you do cross that bridge and become a parent, is there's this thing called parent shaming. And if you do stuff, not like the rest of the parents, you get shamed for doing so. If we go to a birthday party, our kids are not eating the birthday cake. People might be like, oh my God, I can't believe you're doing that. But our kids know that stuff's not healthy. We've explained to them what it does to the body, the brain, and all that. And they're totally okay with it. Which is why I made a point to want to find some sort of reward for them abstaining and driving us crazy with asking about cake. So that's when I was like, all right, carnivore ice cream. Now they help me make ice cream. And that's their thing. After we come home from like a birthday party or something like that, you can have 2 scoops, large scoops of the ice cream that they have at home, and they get to choose the ice cream. So it's something that they want, their flavor. My wife or I, we had ice creams when we were on vacation at the Dominican. And we're like, this ice cream just doesn't taste.
It's not as good.
It's not as good.
You can make your own. With the raw honey, like the real raw. Oh man. Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with the food stuff and the restaurants. It doesn't take willpower for me to not go to the restaurant because I can make better food than the restaurant. Right? I have better ingredients. I have the best quality steak and meat, or just even cook it correctly or season it and cook it in butter, all that. So that's another reason why I wouldn't even want to go to Chipotle. It's like I'm gonna pay like $10 for a bunch of just rice and beans. Like
it's more than $10 now.
Is it?
I don't know if you've heard about inflation. It's more than $10.
Wow,
like $20 because they went skimp on the meat.
Yeah,
so you have to order double protein to get your old school size protein. So now you're like doubling your costs right away.
It's
not $10. I wish it was, but it's not anymore.
I wouldn't even know. I've been out to eat probably like 4 times this year, and it was for just 4 events that I went to, it was like, okay, someone's birthday dinner. It's for a specific purpose. Yeah. I just don't have the desire. Some people, think that I'm restricted. I'm not restricting myself at all. I just don't have the desire to go there anymore.
I think also if you don't enjoy cooking and you don't know what you're doing in the kitchen, you're going to end up not liking what you're making because you have no direction, right? If you take the time to pursue learning how to use those ingredients, it actually can become really relaxing and rewarding when you're done.
It's great. And it's not hard because I cook very simple things. It's barely even cooking. It's like I heat up ingredients. I get whole food things and I basically just heat up meats or eggs and then scoop on like sauerkraut or pickles. Right? It's like it's barely cooking. I'm just heating things up and then adding whole foods on the side or having fruit for dessert.
So how did you go down this path of being into health? Like what was your catalyst pursuit of knowledge now of health?
Lost both my parents around 30.
Whoa.
Yeah. So I just turned 41 the other day. So it's been a kind of over 10-year journey.
By the way, I already wished him happy early birthday. So I'll say it again. So if you're like, he He did say happy birthday.
Yes, he did. That's also kind of when you start not being able to eat whatever you want anymore. Some people, it happens a lot sooner. Yeah. Right. But I was always active and stuff. But like, so around 30, I was just becoming the average American. You're kind of getting the dad bod.
Yeah.
Like I actually was like 20 pounds heavier or more of fat, just like fat. I just had the dad bod, but I was like skinny fat. It's the worst way to go.
Like, oh, see, you're staying. You're like, yeah, but you touch the body. It's like touching like a Ziploc bag full of water.
Exactly.
Squish, squish.
Yeah. And then it's like you can get away with it kind of with your shirt on, and then you take your shirt off and it's just
long sleeves out, man. Because when you move your arm and this stuff starts moving like a waterbed,
people can tell. I think a lot of people just get away with you're just in clothes and you can't really see. But that around the belly, there's a lot of stuff going on there. The visceral fat is a huge thing, and that's the fat on the inside that you can't even see. That's really where the metabolic problems come from, or it's a sign of it. And this is a whole nother rabbit hole. You can get a DEXA scan and see how much visceral fat you have. But this is a DEXA scan. There's different versions. You can actually get an MRI and really see the visceral fat. The MRI would.
So it's like a thermal scan.
Well, the DEXA scan, forget the technology, but it looks at the composition of your body. Okay. So it can tell the difference between muscle, bone, fat, and visceral fat. So subcutaneous fat is the fat that you can pinch, right? So it's like if you have belly fat, you can pinch it. That's the subcutaneous fat. And that's pretty harmless. It's just kind of like normal. Visceral fat is on the inside. But so if you're skinny fat, you could not even really know that you're filled with visceral fat. And so this is the fat that's in and around the organs.
This is the stuff that is bad for you?
Yes.
Got it.
So a lot of people don't understand why, say, India and China, very thin, they have like a low BMI. They're not like obese as a nation. Mm-hmm. They have the highest diabetes. Those two countries have really the most diabetes in the world. They also have the highest population. So that plays into it, but tons of type 2 diabetes, stroke, all this other stuff. And so people don't really understand why they can have all these problems even when they look relatively thin. And the answer is the visceral fat. It's having the metabolic damage, the metabolic problems, mm-hmm. and you don't have to be giant.
So it kind of plays off that old Lipitor commercial where you see the girl or the guy walking down like a red carpet and they're all thin, and what we associate thin with being healthy, and then they would faint and then go, just because this doesn't mean you don't have high cholesterol. What you're saying is they got half of it right. That because you appear to not be big
mm-hmm.
Or overweight does not mean that there's something negatively going on inside that we can't see. So we associate the scale and how we look in the mirror as being healthy, when the reality is you could have lost 20 pounds and you look thinner. However, what's going on inside, because we're not that clear model diorama of the human body where we can't see inside, mm-hmm. that there could be something negatively going on undermining our own causes. How do we stop that visceral fat from forming or to remove it? Can you get it removed without going to a doctor and having them suck it out?
They can't suck it out. No. It's avoiding processed foods.
Really?
Yes, visceral fat. It starts and alcohol. Basically, there's this cascade that happens when your body gets basically too much energy. Okay, I'll do a little spiel. The least food is 4 things. Okay, it's protein, it's vitamins and minerals, it's fat, and it's carbs. Right. So those are generally kind of like the macros, right? Plus the micros, which is vitamins and minerals. The protein and vitamins and minerals, those are your nutrients. Those are your building blocks, your body. These are the things you kind of want more of and you need, right, to build your body. The fats and carbs, although of course there's some necessary fats and they're great, the fats and carbs are kind of more energy, right? So it's kind of this thing of nutrients and energy. Okay, that's food. Food is nutrients and energy. Your body doesn't care what the name of your diet is. It doesn't care if you're paleo or vegan or keto or what. It cares about getting nutrients, enough nutrients, right? Protein, and enough, and the right amount of energy, right? And most people these days get too few nutrients and too much energy, right? That's why it's way more than calories. All these calorie bros are just like, just cut calories. It's all about calories. No, you want less energy calories and more nutrient calories. Someone could become relatively thin, but that doesn't mean they're healthy, basically because of this concept of nutrients versus energy. So most people, so to lose weight, if you need to lose fat or try to lose visceral fat, you need to be aware of the nutrients versus energy, right? So like if you're going to Chipotle, if I were to go to Chipotle, I would get double meat and no tortilla and get into bowls, right?
That's what I do.
Exactly. So, right. So you get double meat, no tortilla, get in the bowl. So what you just did is drastically increase the nutrient to energy ratio. You went doubled up on the meat, which is tons of protein and nutrients, and you cut out the tortilla, which is basically just empty calories, just empty energy, like too much energy. My whole diet is based on this concept of like, okay, I grew up in Hawaii. People eat a lot of rice. They eat these thing called plate lunches. Okay, it comes in a styrofoam thing. You get 2 scoops of rice, a scoop of macaroni salad, which is terrible. It's just mayonnaise and a portion of meat, right? Very classic dish. 2 scoops of rice, scoop of mac salad, 1 portion of meat. What I get is, say, 1 scoop of rice, maybe 1 scoop of kimchi, right? There's a lot of 8, and then double meat, right? So I'm getting double meat, only 1 scoop of rice, and I'm getting kimchi, which is very low energy. It's not like there's no excess calories in that, right?
And it's fermented.
Yes,
great for your gut health.
Absolutely.
Which we didn't get into. I wanted to say, like, by the way, fermented foods are amazing for gut health.
So much more to the story than, and that doesn't count calories, right? You can't consider gut health if you're just counting calories. So yes, good point. So that meal, it's still almost the same ingredients, but it's just drastically different in the nutrient to energy ratio and drastically different for my body. And that is what keeps me lean and healthy, right? So that I'm not eating 2 scoops of rice and a bunch of mac salad and mayonnaise. Like that's empty energy. This concept of empty calories, my grandma even taught me that. She's like, don't eat empty calories. My mom, it's real, right? The parents, it's always like, don't eat empty calories. Don't eat. That was like their one bit of advice.
Don't drink soda.
Exactly. 100%. They're like, you don't drink soda. And it's just empty calories.
I was addicted to Dr. Pepper when I was younger.
Yeah.
I would go through, I'm not even kidding. I had some friends that worked at TGI Fridays, and we'd just go there because we're, young and didn't have any money. And I mean, you have friends that work at restaurants. Oh, you get up. They're like, hey, there was a mistake back in the kitchen. Here you go. And you're like, sweet. But they would bring me 2 pitchers of Dr. Pepper.
Oh, wow.
And I'd be there at least 3 to 4 times a week.
Wow.
The amount of soda I used to drink was ridiculous. And I worked at a camera store in cosmetology school. And next to the camera store, as they say, across the strip mall, was a Little Caesars Pizza. And I became friends with everybody there. So I just got unlimited soda and breadsticks. So I tell you, I haven't always eaten super clean. There was periods in my life when I didn't have money and I made friends with people. And I also didn't know how bad it was then too. And I also wonder, was the flour I was eating in 1999 better or worse than the flour that is being served now? I don't know.
Probably worse. Yeah, there's so much more to the story of glyphosate, right? And all these different
folic acid, pesticide, everything.
Yeah. So it's getting worse and worse. But I think the bigger thing is that when you're younger, you can get away with more. I interviewed this great scientist, PhD, spent his whole life studying aging and stuff, did some famous studies with fruit flies. He's out of UC Davis. I'm going to remember his name in a second. But he basically said, or he kind of figured this out in his research, that it's not that your metabolism slows down as you age. People just say, you just blame your metabolism. They actually have studies, real hard studies, that show that your metabolism does not slow down. I mean, maybe if you're over 70, it slows down a little bit. And yes, when you're really young, when you're under 18, it is better. But really from 18 to 65 or something, I forget, your metabolism does not slow down. It's very much the same.
Yeah.
What it is that, like I said, you're less able to get away with the modern diet. You can get away with a lot when you're younger for different reasons. Doesn't mean it's healthy. It doesn't mean it's it was fine that you ate that Little Caesars and soda. It's just that, you're very active and there's just you just can get away with it more. Okay, we're talking about visceral fat.
Yeah.
So how to get rid of visceral fat?
I want to know. So I want to get rid of mine.
Very limited alcohol.
Very limited or no alcohol?
Well, no alcohol is always the best choice, but that's not always realistic for everyone.
What do you mean? Why is it not realistic for?
Well, nowadays it seems very realistic. I like it. Like there's a Sapien Center is sort of a very sober culture. We have a lot of parties without alcohol. It's definitely realistic, but I'm just speaking to the masses.
I mean, I was talking to somebody about the pros of drinking.
And
the pros of drinking, like it makes you more confident. Like that's like the one thing that most people feel it gives them this ability to not have inhibitions and all that. That's not always even a good thing too, because then you get too crazy. I have a lot of friends in the industry, music industry, that are all, I wouldn't say that they're sober, but they can't drink it. Because there's sober and then there's California sober, which is we don't drink, but we smoke weed and things like that. I've never done a drug in my life. I've only drank alcohol. And I've found in the past several years, even that has been reduced now to almost nothing. And it goes back to, this is why I was saying, like, why is it no alcohol versus a little bit of alcohol is if you're doing all of these steps to get healthier and to make your body function better as a better, well-tuned machine, you would not put diesel in your car if it's not a diesel car because it ruins the engine. And I imagine in some sort of abstract sense, that's what alcohol is doing to your body. And processed food is you're putting the wrong gas.
Yeah.
Even though it is gas and it will make some cars run, but across the board, it's not good for you.
Yeah. I use that analogy more for processed foods. Yes. It's like, yes, they have some protein and some vitamins, a little bit, vitamins and minerals, and it has some carbs and fats, but it's not the right fuel. And it's going to cause problems long term. And it's actually, a lot of the problem is that it's a terrible nutrient to energy ratio. Yeah. Actually, when you think about it, it's like having processed foods in your diet, like really ruins your whole nutrient to energy ratio. And I look at things like on a month scale, because that's how you have to look at things. You don't lose weight or gain weight in a day. You lose weight or gain weight over time.
Even on Thanksgiving, you don't gain weight.
Oh,
dude, I'm just massive.
Yeah. So I look at things on the month scale. My nutrient to energy ratio, I just make sure that that's correct over time. And really, processed foods have no place in that. And a lot of alcohol does not have any place in that. That is just really setting you up for failure. But then I say, yeah, the alcohol thing is a long story too. It's like, I do understand the social nature of alcohol, and it, I've had a lot of great times in my life having alcohol with friends and stuff and social occasions. But yes, nowadays I drink infrequently, and it's better. Yeah, the less I drink, the better I feel. Yeah.
If you have a beer at 2:00 in the afternoon and then you go to sleep at say like 10:00 at night, you're not going to feel the effects of it.
Huge. This is a good point.
But if you have a beer at 8:00 at night and then you go to bed at 10, you're going to feel shitty.
100%. And then if you have a beer at 11 p.m. and then stay out till midnight, it's going to be even worse. I think there's a huge factor there, circadian rhythm with the sleep disruption, with just your body being able to process.
I also think if you think about alcohol, it turns into a carb anyways, right? So it's pure energy, no nutrients.
Yep.
So if you're having it 2:00 in the afternoon, you day drinking, you have time to use that energy through the rest of the day.
That's part of it. Yeah.
If you keep drinking though from 2 till 7 and then go to bed at 10, you're still going to feel shitty.
Yes, definitely.
I read somewhere that if you go to sleep with your glycemic index spiking, it stops the production of human growth hormone. So then like your body's not able to actually replenish its hormones. It's not able to like clear your brain out. It's not able to do all of these things that you're supposed to do when you go to sleep.
Well, no, there's so many things to it. And the sleep disruption is huge. You're not really getting good sleep. Even if you think you're getting good sleep, you're not. And then I never just drink during the week. Like, people are like, have a glass of wine, that type of thing. No, it's terrible.
Hey, it was on the blues though. You can have a glass of wine.
I mean, maybe at 4 p.m. I don't know what these guys do.
You know what? I did find that when they would, I remember one of the Italian dudes, he said, he had to walk all these hills. He was like, and he'd pick up his granddaughter from school. On his way to pick up his granddaughter from school, he'd stop by, have a small glass of wine, and then he would go pick up his granddaughter from school and they'd walk back. And they showed the serving size of the wine, which we haven't gotten into American portion. It was probably a double shot.
Yeah.
Like what you would normally do is a shot glass. It was just a double that. And it was like in this fancy little, stemmed cup. And I was like, that's probably the amount of wine.
That's probably perfectly fine. That's probably, there could even, will they have associations that, I've heard all these studies over the years. They always go back and forth on it, right? Like, is it good? Is it bad with the wine? But if there's positive associations with it, it's probably because it helps him relax or have more social, like the Blue Zone type stuff. If you're having fun, you're relaxed, lower stress, you're connecting with friends and family and drinking a little bit of wine, then that's probably the benefit.
Yeah.
Not the wine. There's no benefit to the wine. I want to try to tie up some loose ends actually, because we went down a lot of paths.
I'm great at that. I am wonderful at going in many directions and never finishing any of them.
Oh, no, I love it. I try to keep this inventory in my head of all the things that we talked about. So even in the very beginning, we talked about being anti-fragile. The last thing I was talking about is that I want to be able to handle some broccoli. Yeah. Right. I want to be able to handle the Chipotle once a month if I have to. And you can, and the body is resilient. You can be anti-fragile. If you have like a stomach problem and end up in the bathroom because you had one piece of broccoli, like that's not a good thing. Like that doesn't mean you're healthy, right? You do want some sort of, like balance. I hate the word balance because it's kind of used to like force people to eat terrible foods, like, oh, eat a balanced diet. You get your dressing, your low fat dressing and your, all this trash. Another big one though, when we're talking about the blood type and the different diets in your ancestry.
Yeah.
This is a really interesting one that I think it's going to blow people away a little bit. Height and health is a very big thing they're correlated. Yes.
In health.
Height and health. So not to say that tall people live longer at all, but reaching your full height potential is a sign of that you've gotten good nutrition. Okay. And then and if you get poor nutrition, there's great studies showing that there's a lot of countries where they get too low animal foods and they have stunted growth. Okay. So you can look up these studies of stunted growth in children and low animal food intake. Yeah. Right. Because they're not getting the nutrients and energy, or the nutrients, protein, vitamins, and minerals that they need.
Okay.
And then there's a couple studies. There's one is 105 countries correlated to height and health.
Yeah.
And then they extend it to 150 countries. And there is a direct correlation between animal food consumption, quality animal proteins, and height and health. Okay, so does
this explain why the Dutch are the tallest people on the planet?
100%.
That they eat cheese,
meat, fish, quality animal protein. So this is okay. So
everyone's like the Dutch. I'm like, when you're looking as a country as a whole, and you look at the average of men and women, they continuously are the tallest people on the planet. We're not talking about remote parts of the world. We're talking about an entire nation. And I never felt more short in my life than when I was in Holland. Have you been to Holland?
No.
They were like 19-year-olds. They're like 6'5". Wow. I was walking around never feeling so short in my life. And I don't think I'm like a short guy. I'm not extremely tall either. I'm like average, I'm like right around 6 feet.
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa, there's a lot of tall people here. And then when I went to like Sweden, I was like, okay, we're closer in height. Germany, same thing. And I only use that because those are also areas that are proximity to Holland.
Yeah.
Right? I was just surprised how much taller they were.
So this study will show it all. These graphs are amazing. They have a graphic of the world, and it's like kind of a heat map, right? You picture the entire world's map and a heat map. All the tallest people are in that region you're talking about. Okay. The more north you get, the taller people are. And so close to the equator, the shorter people are. And it's just really universal. And there's also just a direct correlation. These graphs like an XY axis, right? And all the dots. So I have all these 105 countries or 150 countries, dots. And they make this almost perfect correlation with the line, the line of best fit, right? You see the line that fits all of these dots. Yeah. Just up and to the right? It's just like straight up, like at the angle. The more animal protein you eat, the healthier you are and the taller you are. And it just makes so much sense. So this actually kind of is a big point when you're talking about, okay, well, what is your heritage and what can you eat and that type of thing? Yeah, there could be a story there that are from the Southeast Asia. You're more adapted to eating a lot of rice and vegetables and carbs and less fat and protein. But these are the shortest people on earth, which means from this study and other studies is they did not get enough nutrition. So it's like the genetic thing is people say, well, the height is genetic. We're talking about a population level here. We're not talking about like an individual level. Height is genetic. Well, it's like, well, how did we get these genetics? We all came from a group 70,000 years ago. There was only a few thousand people left on Earth. They heard about this. There's like some studies, they looked through people's genetics and it was some big event. I don't know if there was like a asteroid impact or like volcanoes or 70,000 years ago, there was only a few thousand people on Earth. So we're all kind of related to those people.
Got it.
So from those people, we through our environment and our diet, we've changed into the huge diversity of the world today. And some people are taller up in the Netherlands and up there. Some people are shorter. So the only explanation is because of their environment and diet, those affected the genes, right? And epigenetics. And that's why. So it's through nutrition. Basically, the big kind of master thesis that I've been looking at for a number of years that no one really wants to talk about because, I don't know, it hurts people's feelings to talk about height and genetics and stuff. Through the quality animal protein, and in the studies, it's milk, meat, eggs, you are taller. That's basically you reaching your full height potential.
Interesting. I've always wondered every time I looked on a tallest people of the planet, it was always Netherlands was number one. I think it was like Finland, and then like Norway, Sweden, Denmark, I think Iceland, Germany is like 9 or 10. And again, to your point, it's all groups that are in these very cold climates where animal fat, animal meats were the thing, because they are also not great at those. That is not fertile land for crops.
It's cold. It's half the year.
Not until you start getting to the southern part of Europe and start getting to like the Alpsy, below the Alps. That's when you can start getting, you have the French, so I'm going to talk French countryside. You have
Spain.
You have that. You have Spain. You have, the lower half of Switzerland, which gets into Italy. And then the northern part of Italy is more prolific farming than the southern part, where you get into like Sicily, from what I understand, of coffee beans and roasting. Somebody explained that to me. I don't know if it's true or not, but it makes sense. It is interesting to look at the earth and to categorize health by height, and then looking at the food. And then you go back to our earlier conversation about ancestral heritage of eating. It would coincide that maybe those foods you have a predisposition for wanting and craving, perhaps. But it is interesting that if the areas of the world that have the lowest height have the lowest animal fat, the lowest animal protein, then it just seems like a very easy fix to increase height and health is by incorporating more animal source protein and fats.
That's kind of what I'm saying. And
this is a sensitive subject that people don't want to touch.
Kind of. Yeah, I've tried to get some interviews from the author, and he said no, but he also said his English wasn't very good. So, I don't know. It seems like it's indicative of something, right? It tells us something. So yes, maybe some of these people that they can feel better as vegetarian, but that doesn't mean that that's the optimal diet, right? There's a difference between what your ancestors ate and maybe you claim you feel better, or maybe you do feel better. I always think people could feel better. They just don't know. You know what I mean? Right. They're like, oh, I'm doing fine as a vegetarian. I've seen a lot of these vegetarians when they're in their older age, 60s, 70s. They don't look very good. A lot of just sort of visceral fat, a lot of the health problems. You know what I mean?
I'm always surprised when I hear and I meet people who are vegan or vegetarian, and they're like, can you believe I have to be on statins? And I'm like, because they wanted to put me on statins when I was 27. And I refused to do it. And the reason is that the doctor at the time, the way he read my cholesterol report, he said it was really high. And then I had a client who was a doctor, and I told him the numbers. And that doctor goes, fire your doctor. And I said, why? He goes, those numbers are perfectly fine. I go, what they said that this is bad. And he, at the time, and I think they've changed. So I'm 42, so go back in time almost 20 years. At the time, my numbers were well in the guidelines of the EU, but not America, because America had a shorter window being healthy with these numbers. Meanwhile, the EU had a higher one. In particular, French had a higher or bigger window, what they consider healthy with cholesterol at the time. And they keep winning longest living country in,
I know.
in Europe. And
Full fat, everything.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And I thought it was interesting that my numbers fit that profile, but it did not fit the American metrics of good cholesterol. And after that, I was like, my doctor goes, do you want to follow your doctor, or do you want to continue down the path that you're on, where you're literally mimicking the longest living people in Europe? And then I go, well, I don't smoke. It goes, even longer now. By the way, where are we, Brian, on haircut?
Oh, I love it.
Cool.
Yeah, so much better than what I do. I love it.
Well, I can see everything.
Yeah. I'm just like blindly doing it. This is like exactly how
You put any product in your hair?
I do have, actually my company, Nose to Tail, we have a thing called hair food. So it's made from beef tallow.
Okay.
So I use that. So it's, I only use my own company's products.
As you should.
Yeah.
As you should. I mean, it'd be so weird if you didn't, right?
Yeah.
It'd be weird if you're like, oh, use this.
But
Use
like,
this.
no. Like, no, why would I use that?
Why would I use the thing I spent all this time and energy?
Yeah. No, the whole idea is, chemical free, all natural, like beef tallow. Like the thing is, we're made from animal fat, right? It's saturated fat, right? We are. And so that's what you put on your skin.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we scratched the surface because, we only could scratch the surface at haircut.
Yeah.
But there definitely is a bigger conversation around the food. I think what you're doing is awesome. You're not taking sides. You're just kind of throwing out, hey, here's the information. I'll let you decide, which is your audience on Instagram knows. And does that translate into your podcast that you have called with Peak Human, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like to interview. I've had some vegan kind of doctor on. I have people, all kinds of people on different sides. And that's kind of, it's helped the film. Well, it turned into a series. So Food Lies is a 6-part series. People should look it up on YouTube. There's a intro. 3.5-minute intro.
I will link it into the notes.
Yeah, that's kind of the whole thesis is, let's look at all sides here and let's just see what we should eat. It's kind of a simple equation. All animals have a diet that got them here.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like this is what their natural diet is, right? Like koalas are eating like the eucalyptus leaves or whatever. You know what I mean? Like
that gets them high, I believe.
I think it does. Yeah. But lions eat zebras and zebras eat grass. And you know what I mean? It's just, and so we're going away from that diet. It's kind of simple that humans will thrive in a certain way of eating. And yes, it is different from where you are in the world, but really there is a foundation of animal nutrition and there's whole foods on the side. And that's undebatable.
Yeah.
Right. It's just like, that's just what it was. That's what we had available. We didn't obviously have processed foods. We didn't have all these low fat dressings and seed oils and this and that. Yeah. So it's barely even controversial, but for some reason I have to make a whole series about it.
And again, we were talking a little bit before filming is that, the idea of which diet you subscribe to now is not just for your health, is now means you're connected to a whole slew of other things.
That's your identity too.
What?
It's like almost people's identity too.
Yeah.
Well, for one, they try to categorize you politically, but it's also like people's identity, which is not really great either. Mm-hmm. They're like, well, I'm a vegetarian, or like, I'm paleo. It's like, well, how about you don't characterize yourself and what you eat?
Have you seen Silicon Valley?
Yeah.
I'm a pescatarian. That scene. So with the guy with the curly hair, the menu go, any diet restrictions? And he goes, I'm a pescatarian. And so they're serving all this food at this swanky Silicon Valley meeting. And they go, oh, but you're the pescatarian? And some guy goes, what's that? And he's like, oh, I only eat fish that eat other fish. And the guy's like, oh, I'm a pescatarian now. And sure enough, I was laughing because I'm like, this is how it starts. They hear something they've never heard and they think it sounds cool. They want to sound unique and they go, oh, that's me. That's me. I don't even know, like I said, I don't even know how to even describe my wife and I are like we do a little paleo stuff. We do some carnivore. We do a lot more animal based. I could tell you that we've completely removed the processed stuff out of our life. or I would say minimally processed stuff.
Yeah, I call it Sapien. So not to have a name, I was trying to avoid names, but people are like, well, what is it? Because it's not carnivore, it's not paleo, it's like ancestral diet. It's kind of weird, but it's just Sapien. Like, or you can call it a Sapien diet, but that's what it is. Sounds like what you do. It's like, well, we have whole foods, and we have fruit, and we have raw honey and raw milk and meat and eggs and, other habit foods on the side. That's just Sapien. And I want to try to popularize that.
I think so. I think it's great. We're done. But you have your Food Lies series that's out on YouTube, which we'll link. You have the Food Lies account that you do. You have your podcast, PQMed, right? Is that on all platforms?
Yep.
Okay. If you're in Austin, you want to check out Sapien Center. This sounds like a community for your third space that you want to belong to. You have your products, News to Tell, right? And that's apart from hair product. What else is there?
Skin food, soap, deodorant, lip balm, just all beef tallow.
Cool. Is there anything we missed?
No, that's it.
Awesome. Cool. Well, thank you, Brian. Maybe we'll do this again.
Amazing. Thank you for the haircut. Yeah.
If you can one day and growing out your hair even longer.
One day, I'm going to quit cutting my hair. I got to get to that status in life where I come to you.
Well, I want to ask you real quick. Would you say that this way of living gets confused with biohacking? Sorry, I meant that earlier on, because I think people go like, oh, you're into biohacking. And I'm like, how is this biohacking?
I'm almost against biohacking. At one point I was trying to say it's called ancestral hacking is what I do.
Okay.
Right. So biohacking is like using gadgets and gizmos and like trying to cheat nature, right?
Cheat death.
Yes. And I think ancestral hacking, which I just don't like the term at all, but it's just doing Sapien, is kind of the opposite. It's how do we live closer to nature? So ancestral hacking to me means live like our ancestors, but in the modern world, right? I don't want to go live in a grass shack in a cave. Like I want to live in Austin and be part of society, but how can I hack my way into living like my body expects, right? And then what that is eating animal-based whole foods. Yeah, it's going out in the sun, it's exercising, it's having Sapien Center, it's community, right? It's all those things, but no gadgets and gizmos, really.
Yeah.
Like I'm against it. I don't wear anything. Like I
mean, I wear a watch.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to, I will not wear a digital thing on me. Yeah. If I don't have to have my cell phone carried on me,
get it away.
Get it away. Yeah. Having a buzzing thing on my wrist all the time, that would be annoying to me. Yeah. If I didn't need a camera and email to have access to for work, I would have a flip phone.
That's ancestral hacking. Yes, that's a big difference. I'm telling you that, I don't like it. I've been to a biohacking conference once. Yeah. Because they gave it to me for free. And the people did not look healthy. They just wanted to cheat. They want the easy way out, or they're not going to focus on the diet. Well, this is just at, a large biohacking conference. I'm not saying all there's many biohackers that look great.
Well, I've seen some of them.
Yeah.
And I go, wow, you're 75. Yeah. Like your biceps have biceps. And that's how do you do that? Peptides, apparently.
But I'm just saying some of them. It's just that and I think that's where they go astray. Is they think that they're just gonna do this, wear the gadgets and take the peptides and do all this stuff, and then that's gonna get them there. And then they skip the real things, which is diet, exercise, sleep, sun. That.
And I feel like it's like the people who do physique competitions. But then when it comes to like actually having strength for like doing, I would say like you have your muscle person, your Mr. Olympian, right? And then you have what I call farm strength, throwing bales of hay.
Functional strength. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. You have functional strength, and then you have beautiful strength. Yeah. Look how sculpted and symmetrical my body is. But the reality is like, can you be functional?
Yeah.
Can you do something? Like I let the grass grow a little bit longer, and I don't need sled pushes. I have my push mower.
Yeah.
That's what I do. That's how I get my push in. Huh. I know it sounds stupid to some people. I go out there in my swim shorts, no sunscreen, full sun exposure, and I'm out there doing it with no sunglasses because I've read lately that apparently the eyes is a really great way of absorbing the vitamin D, which is making me now go through and get rid of all the blue light blocking glasses. I'm very on that. They'll talk to you later on about. But I'm out there 4 or 5 hours just doing yard work, and I'm a really hell, dude, I mean, you see this whole white shirt. This is tan for me, but I'm not getting burned like I was.
Yeah, really quickly on that. I think, the people give up seed oils fine. They don't get sunburn.
Yeah.
And I think it's because you're not as inflamed. Your body, basically, if your body's always trying to deal with bad food, processed food, seed oil, stuff like that, it can burn really easily. But if you don't have that, it can take care of itself.
I always felt that I would put it on and then very shortly after in the sun, my skin would feel like it was burning. And I feel that whatever's in most sunscreens you can buy at a drugstore, whatever those were, I'm not going to name names, so you just go to any CVS, right? Because those would always be around me, and they'd be like, "Tab, you need to put on sunscreen really well." I'm like, "Okay, whatever." I feel that there's something in there that when it interacts with my skin and the sun, it creates a chemical burn. So I felt that I was actually getting chemical burns, not actual sunburns.
Interesting.
Yeah, and then my outer skincare is just the same stuff I put on my face, which is a combination of frankincense, blue tansy, and jojoba oil. And I just put that on my body as the sunscreen as a after step skincare. And next thing I know is my skin's fine.
I put my skin food. I actually got sunburned once because I wasn't ready. I was from the sun. Yeah. And I went out for way too long in the middle of the day. This was years ago. Got totally burnt. And I would have peeled, but I put the skin food because it's like the beef tallow. It just soaks up, covered my body, and it just turned into a tan.
Makes me think of the episode of Seinfeld where Kramer is suntanning in butter. Have you seen that?
I don't know.
You don't watch Seinfeld?
I watched some of it.
Oh, yeah. Anyways, it's funny. And then like the guy who plays the postal guy just starts looking at Kramer as like a chicken. He has a delusional thoughts. And he smells so good because he's just asked in butter. It's funny. All right.
No.
We should probably end.
Let's do it. Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Adios. Bye.